Yukon Territory, Alaska, late September 1879. The autumn wind sliced across the Yukon River Valley with a bite that warned men winter was closing in fast, ready or not. And most weren't ready for what Ivan Kuznetsov was constructing, while his neighbors threw up the usual rectangular log cabins. Sturdy, familiar, practical, this Russian trapper was doing something that baffled everyone watching. He was stacking stone, tons of it, in a perfect circle. "Man's gone mad," muttered Thomas Hale, a veteran carpenter who'd built dozens of cabins across the territory in his 20 years in the north. All that sweat, all that rock, and for what? A root cellar he'll freeze in. But Kuznetsov kept at it, hand-picking each granite and basalt block, shaping the walls into a flawless curve that broke every rule of frontier building. What did this quiet Russian understand about surviving Arctic winters that men with generations of Alaskan experience had overlooked? If you're watching this from somewhere frigid right now, you're about to uncover a heating secret that could slash your fuel use in half. But first, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and comment where you're tuning in from. Because what I'm about to reveal isn't just history. It's engineering wisdom that could reshape how you stay warm. And if you stay to the end, I'll share the exact measurements proving this insane design was anything but crazy. Now, let's return to that September day and meet the man everyone dismissed as a fool. Ivan Kuznetsov had taken his first caribou at age 12 in the hills above Yakutsk. By 34, he'd trapped across 3 regions and endured winters that claimed less of men. But it wasn't his trapping skill that set him apart. It was his memory. He recalled the ancient circular stone huts scattered across the Siberian taiga and highlands, where his grandfather had sheltered through blizzards that buried entire herds. He remembered how those old structures held warmth like a cast-iron stove retains heat long after fire fades. And even as a boy, he'd wondered, why has no one kept building like this? So when Kuznetsov claimed his 160 acres along the Yukon that spring, he didn't follow the crowd. He didn't fell spruce for a log cabin. Instead, he spent 2 months hauling stone from basalt and granite outcrop 2 miles upriver. Heavy stone, dense stone, the kind that made other men shake their heads. "You building a fortress or a cabin?" asked Samuel Reed, whose own square cabin was rising quickly. Straight logs, sharp corners, shingled roof, everything standard. "A warm home," Kuznetsov replied in his heavy accent, hands already blistered from stone. By early October, the foundation was set, a perfect circle 16 feet in diameter. No corners, no edges, just a continuous curve of stone sunk 18 inches into the frozen soil. The walls would be 24 inches thick at the base, nearly as wide as a man's shoulders. "That's not a cabin," Hale said flatly, watching Kuznetsov work. "That's a damn furnace you're making. You'll roast or freeze depending on the day." But Kuznetsov had run his numbers. A central hearth, radiant heat spreading evenly in every direction. No cold corners where frost gathered and families suffered. Every inch of wall soaking up heat by day, releasing it through the night. The Siberian principle, scaled to Alaskan winters. The real challenge wasn't the design, it was time. First snow usually struck by mid-November. He had 6 weeks to raise walls and roof it. 6 weeks to prove he wasn't mad. He worked alone, dawn to dusk, lifting, placing, mortaring. Each stone selected for density and fit. The curve rose slowly while rectangular cabins sprang up around him in half the time. "September's nearly gone," Ivan Reed shouted one evening. "You sure you'll finish?" Kuznetsov wiped sweat from his face, eyed the waist-high walls, and nodded once. He wasn't sure, but he was committed. What Kuznetsov built would have made sense to a Siberian herder from centuries past. To Alaskan homesteaders in 1879, it looked like madness wrapped in stubbornness. The design was simple yet demanding. A stone cylinder 16 feet across, walls 24 inches thick at the base, tapering to 18 inches at the roofline. But simplicity in form meant complexity in labor. He'd chosen stone with a mason's precision, though he'd never trained as one. Basalt for the outer layers, tough and insulating, granite for the inner face, smooth and heat radiating. Between them, a core of smaller rocks and clay mortar, packed so tight a blade couldn't slip through. The hearth sat dead center, Not against a wall like every practical cabin. Not in a corner for space saving. Center, equidistant from every point on the circle. A fire pushing heat outward equally. No wasted energy heating one side while the opposite froze. You know what you're doing? Asked Elias Grant, a skilled stonemason who'd come down from Dawson to see family. He circled the perimeter, hand tracing the curve. This is a heat battery. All this mass, it'll take days to warm. Yes, Kuznetsov said, and days to cool. Grant paused. The meaning struck him. You're counting on thermal inertia. I'm counting on winter being long and wood being scarce. The physics were ancient. Stone weighs about 150 pounds per cubic foot. Kuznetsov's walls held roughly 4,800 pounds. Heat capacity of basalt around 0.20 BTU per pound per degree Fahrenheit. Granite similar. That meant his walls could store roughly 1,000 BTUs per degree rise, enough to heat the space for hours after the fire died. But geometry added more. A circle has no corners. Corners pool cold air, leak heat, build frost. A cylinder distributes stress evenly, sheds wind smoothly, and keeps warm air circulating instead of layering hot at the ceiling and cold at the floor. By late October, walls stood 7 feet high. The roof would be simple. Spruce rafters meeting at a central smoke hole, topped with sod for insulation. No fancy work, just function. Grant watched the last stones rise and shook his head. If this works, Ivan, you'll show half of what we know about northern building is wrong. If it doesn't, Kuznetsov replied, eyes on the gray sky, I'll freeze like they said. He finished the roof November 3rd. 8 days later, snow fell. Mockery had begun before the walls reached waist height, but it peaked once the structure stood. It's a grain silo with a door. Hale told anyone at the Fort Yukon trading post. Man spent 3 months on what we finished in 3 weeks. Samuel Reed, who liked Kuznetsov despite thinking him foolish, offered milder words. Ivan, I've seen 7 winters here. Corners aren't the enemy. They're where you store gear, hang meat. You've got a circle. Where do you put anything? The sharpest doubts came from builders. Stone conducts heat faster than wood, said Caleb Thorne, who'd raised 12 homesteads. Touch a log wall in winter. Cool but livable. Touch stone, it's ice. That place will be a freezer by January. Grant, initially curious, voiced reservations too. The idea holds in theory, Ivan. Thermal mass works in old Siberian forts with big fires and help tending them. But here, you'll burn your whole woodpile heating that rock. By February, you'll be at a neighbor's fire. The arguments sounded solid. Stone does conduct, pulling warm from skin, feeling colder than wood at the same temperature. Heating mass takes real energy. Every pound from frozen to comfortable steel's BTUs that could warm air instead. Basic thermodynamics, Thorne said confidently. What insulates also conducts. You've built a beautiful round conductor of cold. I hope I'm wrong. I like you, but I'm not. The women were gentler but skeptical. Mary Hale brought Kuznetsov bread in mid-November. You'll always have a spot at our table if the cold gets too bad, she said softly. No shame if it doesn't work. Even children chanted, roundhouse, roundhouse, circling arms and laughing at anything different. Kuznetsov bore it with quiet Siberian stoicism. He didn't argue or explain his math or his grandfather's huts. He just moved in November 12th, lit his first central fire, and shut the heavy door. Outside, temperatures plunged. Inside, the true test began, while across the Valley 43 rectangular log cabins stood ready to prove they were right. January 1880 brought cold that tested faith. The first week hovered near zero, wind howling down the Yukon. Survivable, frontier families knew how to handle zero. Bank fires, hang blankets, wear layers. Then January 11th hit. A cold snap roared in from the north. By noon, 10 below. Sunset, minus 25. Midnight, minus 35 degrees Fahrenheit. It held for 6 days. The Yukon Valley pushed log cabin limits. At the Hale place, Thomas fed the fire every 2 hours. His family slept piled, breath fogging even near the hearth. Walls frosted. Buckets froze near flames. We're burning a cord every 4 days, he told his wife, teeth chattering. We won't reach March. At Reed's cabin, similar misery. Bedroom circled the fireplace tightly. The only spot above freezing. Far corners read 8 degrees Fahrenheit. Worst I've seen, he told his son. 1875 was bad, but nothing like this. The pattern repeated. Firewood rationed, children crying from cold, men risking frostbite for wood runs. Then there was Ivan Kuznetsov's round stone cabin. On January 14th, the 4th day of the freeze, Samuel Reed trekked through knee-deep snow to check. He expected a frozen trapper, maybe needing rescue. He knocked. The door opened. Warmth rushed out. Kuznetsov stood in shirt sleeves, no coat, no blanket. Face relaxed, hand steady. Behind him, the cabin glowed with impossible comfort. Ivan, Reed managed. How? Kuznetsov gestured to the walls. Touch. Reed pressed his palm to the inner stone, warm like summer rock. The whole circle radiated steady, gentle heat. I build a good fire morning and evening, Kuznetsov said. The stone takes it, holds it, gives it back slowly. All night, all day. Heat circle stays, no escape. Reed pulled his thermometer. 68 degrees Fahrenheit, while his own cabin barely held 15. Dear God, he whispered. You were right. The mock stone walls weren't conducting cold. They were storing heat, so efficiently that Kuznetsov thrived in the decade's worst snap using half the wood of his neighbors. But could the others admit it? Drop a like if you think they did. Subscribe for more frontier secrets modern experts miss, and comment. What's the coldest winter you survived? The test wasn't finished, but the proof was clear. Word flew faster than the cold. By January 16th, 7 men visited, thermometers in hand, needing to witness the impossible. What they saw shattered assumptions. Thomas Hale arrived doubting, left silent. His cabin that morning, 12 degrees Fahrenheit, fire raging. Kuznetsov's, 68 degrees Fahrenheit, fire half size, half as often. 56 degrees difference, Hale said quietly. In the same cold, his holds 56 degrees more warmth. Caleb Thorne tested further. He let the evening fire die at 8 p.m., tracked overnight. Midnight, 64 degrees. 4 a.m., 58 degrees. 8 a.m., 12 hours later, 52 degrees. 12 hours from thermal mass alone, Thorne said, certainty gone. My cabin drops 20 degrees in 2 hours after the fire dies. The math held. For 1,800 pounds of stone at 70 degrees stored 11,000 BTUs, radiating inward evenly. No corners, no dead zones, just constant gentle warmth. Elias Grant returned with tape and notebook. Wall base 24 inches, roof 18. Interior 16 feet. Hearth exactly 8 feet from every wall. Stone mix, 60% basalt outer, 40% granite inner. Radiant efficiency is remarkable, he muttered, calculating. Central fire reaches every segment equally. Curve kills convective dead spots. He looked up. You've done what old Siberian mass hearts achieve, with frontier tools and a tenth of fuel. Would you told the harshest truth. Reed tracked 1.2 chords in 2 January weeks. Kuznetsov, heating equivalent space far warmer, 0.5 chords, 60% less for 55 degrees more warmth. Impossible, Reed said, logging it, except it's happening. January 19th, the snap broke. Temperatures rose to 15 above. Families staggered out, exhausted from surviving history's brutal cold. Kuznetsov emerged rested. That evening, 9 men met at the Fort Yukon post. Silence hung long. Finally, Hale spoke. We need to talk about what we saw, what we measured. Thorne added, what we got wrong. Grant quietly. The Russians' foolish round stone cabin outperformed every standard designed by margins we can't deny. The numbers, thermometers, and difference between fear and comfort didn't lie. He tried to tell us, Reed said softly. We laugh. Hale nodded. Worse. We were certain we knew better. The lesson in that room felt colder than the freeze. Confidence without knowledge is arrogance. And arrogance in an Alaskan winter kills. Spring 1880 brought mud and relief. But the valley changed. Late March. Reed asked, Ivan, this summer, would you help add a stone heat wall to my cabin? I can't face another January like that. Kuznetsov nodded. Better, build new, build round. By April, 12 families approached him, not for advice, for help. They wanted his design, mocked 8 months earlier. Hale was among them. Good timber my cabin. But 3 kids cried themselves to sleep in January. Pride doesn't warm children. Stone does. 1880's building season was unlike any before. Kuznetsov shared freely. Dimensions, stone selection, central hearth placement geometry. He surveyed sites, taught thermomass stone identification, explained physics in accented English clearer than any book. By autumn, 6 circular stone cabins stood along the Yukon. By 1881, 17. By 1882, 23 documented using his principles, adapted to local stone and families. The idea spread beyond Alaska. A surveyor documented them. Sketches appearing in Seattle journals. Builders in the Klondike experimented with cylindrical shelters. Even south to British Columbia, homesteaders added thermal mass ideas. The irony stung. Frontier America, so sure rectangular log tradition, needed a Russian immigrant to recall what Siberian herders knew for centuries. Circles kill cold corners. Thermal mass stores heat. Central fires radiate efficiently. Physics ignores tradition. Grant, once doubting, became advocate. He tweaked for larger families, ovals, dual hearths, but kept core, mass, and geometry together. What Ivan showed, he wrote in an 1883 territorial report, is we mistook habit for knowledge. We knew log cabins. We assumed best cabins. We were wrong. Thorne, who called stone a cold conductor, built his own round stone cabin in 1881. He reported 62 degrees better differential than his old log place. 58% less wood. No public apology needed. His home was apology enough. Ivan Kuznetsov lived in his round stone cabin 32 years. He married in 1884, a widow from Tanana who'd heard of the warm house and come to see. They raised 2 children in that circular space where winter stayed outside. When he died in 1911, his cabin was historic. Builders used it as example. The Territorial Historical Society recorded it. Every harsh winter, someone recalled a Russian trapper who built round while others built square, who grasped thermal mass while others clung to tradition. The cabin stands today, preserved and modified. The stones once mocked still radiate warmth. The geometry once senseless still banishes cold corners. The design once stupid still works, as Kuznetsov knew, because he hadn't invented new. He'd remembered old, tested by Siberian centuries. Something true, and truth, unlike opinion, doesn't care if you believe. It just keeps you warm while you learn. The greatest discoveries aren't always forward. Sometimes backward to wisdom forgotten. If this changed how you view old knowledge, like again, subscribe for more frontier engineering secrets experts missed. Comment, what old technique beats modern? Because Ivan Kuznetsov proved the crazy one is often the only one remembering. The round stone cabin held 55 degrees more warmth, not magic, but memory, and that made all the difference.